Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome to a new episode of the Looks Like On podcast. This time, our guest is Tom Doss. He was a featured speaker in the film Awakening Mind. The YouTube algorithm showed me this film during a time that I was researching Rupert Spira, and Rupert Spira is also one of the speakers in this film. The funny thing is, before I saw the film, I had seen Tom posting content on a non-dualism Facebook group, and I had no idea that he was a a teacher who's featured in films like this. So once I realized that he is one of these teachers, I just felt I had to get him on the podcast. This conversation is about awakening, or as he calls it, liberation. And when I think of awakening or liberation, what comes to mind is just having clarity, seeing reality as clearly as we possibly can from our limited human perspective. The surprising byproducts of this clarity is actually good mental health. And that is really my motivation for learning more about this and for sharing it with you all. So thank you for listening and thank you for being part of my journey. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Hey, Tom.
Hello. Um, I can't hear you. Let me just check.
Okay.
My volume's up. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
It isn't. Hi, can you say something? Hi, Nick.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Awesome.
That's
Awesome. Nice to meet you, Tom.
oh, nice to meet you, Nick, as well.
You're in the UK now, right?
I am, yes. I'm in the UK.
Nice.
And you? You're in Vietnam, is it?
I'm in Vietnam. Yes, correct.
Great. How come you're there? Are you from there?
No, no, I'm actually, my family is from Peru. I grew up in the US and now I'm in Vietnam. Yeah,
Great.
yeah, I came here, well, just out of curiosity mostly. And I ended up teaching English. So right now I'm teaching English in public school. And yeah, since I've been here, it's I guess when my whole spiritual journey started.
Oh,
Um,
really?
but yeah, I wanted to ask you about yours. How did your spiritual journey
Well,
begin
whereabouts are you? Whereabouts are you in Vietnam then?
in Ho Chi Minh City?
The reason I ask is I very short amount of time. I taught English in Ho Chi Minh City as well.
Wow.
Yeah, just for about a month.
Which
I
company?
did. No, I volunteered
Ah,
at a school for disadvantaged children
mm,
um just for a few weeks whilst we were there,
wow.
and it was a wonderful experience. I'm still in touch with some of the kids now who are sort of in their late 20s and early 30s now.
That's cool. Where did you stay in Ho Chi Minh City?
We stayed in quite centrally. I can't remember the I mean, if I looked on a map, I'll be able to find it for you. But it was in a sort of a guest house of some kind,
Mm,
in a relatively touristy place, quite central because we wanted to also see some sights and things like that.
cool.
So
Maybe like District 3 or District 1 or something.
yeah, I can't remember. I mean, I remember all the districts, but I can't remember where I was. Yeah, but it was something like that. Yeah, it was a while ago. It was a while ago.
That's really cool.
It was great fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's why I just asked. Yeah.
I was really curious. Yeah, I wanted to ask you because I saw you in the film The Awaken the Mind,
Oh
um,
yeah.
also featuring like Rupert Spira and all of these other teachers. I wanted to ask you like how did your spiritual journey begin?
Yeah, I don't know exactly how it began because from quite a young age, I w and I've been I for because I've had some conversations with people recently, and it's made me reflect again about my past, which I don't think about that much, to be honest. And I think I was very, very young, and I was sort of philosophically interested in questions that maybe lots of other people were not so interested in, especially at my age. I mean, I remember being 5 and 6 years old and thinking, why am I here? What is all this about? And looking back at most 5 and 6 year olds, that's not that normal, you know. I thought it was quite normal to ask these questions. But I think, and there are many kids who do, but there are also plenty who never ask questions like that. So I remember contemplating those questions from quite a young age. But my sort of more conscious seeking, see, I traced that back as spiritual seeking back then. But my more conscious seeking started when I was probably 12 or 13. And I found some books in my parents' bedroom that were spiritual books. And I started reading them. But I didn't really understand what it was speaking about that much. But it spoke to me in a way that nothing else had. And it started to make sense of things, these books. And that's what started me on my sort of conscious spiritual journey. And over time, I started trying to read more spiritual books. I started to, I'd already been taught yoga and meditation as a child. My mother taught me, and she had learnt when she was a child in turn, and so she kind of passed that to me. But it was taught in a secular way. It wasn't taught in a spiritual way. It was taught to me like you do these yoga poses and you do these breathing exercises, and this will help your concentration. It will help you regulate your emotions and your mood, and it will help you be physically fit and healthy. And it was only later did I realize, oh, there's a whole spiritual aspect to these practices as well, which I'd already learned, And then I started becoming more interested in yoga, meditation, spirituality, Christianity, Jesus's teachings. I'd already had been fascinated with the Gospels and Jesus's life because being brought up in the UK, and I went to a Church of England school, so we were always taught about Jesus and the Gospels and his teachings, but it didn't kind of make sense to me. It just some of it seems wonderful and inspiring, and some of it seemed silly to me, at least,
Mm.
and nonsensical. Why would you believe something just because it's written in a book? Was the sort of obvious thing that sprung to my mind. My rather logical, linear mind was like, well, why would you believe something is written in a book? That doesn't make sense to base your whole life because something's written a long time ago. That doesn't make any sense. So, but then when I came across the spiritual teachings, they were saying you could discover something for yourself. It's not about belief. And that was the big revolution for me.
Mm.
They presented spirituality as a science.
Mm.
And as a young boy who was interested in science and interested in mathematics and things like this, that really that really motivated me and lit a spark within me.
Mm. I wonder if other scientists are they also on this path and then they get distracted along the way or something?
Well, I think one thing is that many people never even hear this message. The idea that you can discover something in your own experience for yourself in a scientific fashion. And just to be clear, what I mean by scientific is that you can discover it in your own experience
Mm.
because all facts are experienced. They're all experienced by our mind or the five senses.
Mm.
So all science comes to us through these senses and through the mind. And so they're experientially verifiable truths. They can be verified by several different people in different times and places, and the same truth can be discovered. It's not a matter of faith and belief only, or it's not a matter of faith and belief. Um, Although there is an aspect of science which requires faith and belief, just because the the corpus of knowledge, the body of knowledge of science is so vast. You have to take on faith what other scientists have discovered. But as long as it keeps on working, then that faith um, is well placed.
Do you feel people who have gone on this journey of, I don't know what to call it, the science of spirituality, like they come to similar, if not the same conclusions, right? Like there's like a specific pattern.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, it's like some people go further than others. So you see how people are coming to similar things from different angles.
Hmm.
And maybe some people don't go as far as others. So their understanding is different and their way they express it is different, you know.
And also, it feels like our lifetime is limited. So like we can only go so far, I guess, in our lifetime. I mean, in this human body, I guess, right?
Maybe, maybe, maybe. But, you know, the teaching really is that you can go all the way.
Hmm.
You really want to. You know, there's no limit, but who knows?
What is something that you, what is something that most people don't know, like about this that you think more people should know?
I don't think of it like that anymore because for me, everything is spirituality, everything is spirit, and things happen in the way they're meant to happen.
Hmm.
So it's not a case of, oh, I want to share this with people or that with people. If people are interested in what I'm sharing, then it's right for them for now. And maybe people come, for example, just take me as a teacher. People come to me and they'll be interested in what I share. Maybe that will be all they need, but maybe this is not everything they need. So then they'll move on or they'll discover something else that's better for them. This kind of thing. So it's not like I don't have any sort of desire to convince people or share this with people who don't want to hear it. And I trust that the people who need to hear it or want to hear it will discover this either through me or, through other means.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
I think so. So like you have your website with your teachings or with the teachings, and I guess that is for the people that just happen to come along at the right time of their life.
Well, I've actively created that website, but that's also been a part of just the way things have unfolded, you know. But yes, people come across that and they may like it, they may not like it, they might find it useful, they might land on a particular web page and find that web page incredibly useful and never look anywhere else on that website, and
Hmm.
that's their interaction. And other people, they sort of land on a page and think, wow, this is amazing. And they start reading all these different pages and they start consuming loads of it. And then they get in touch with me and they want to meet up with me. And, so however it works.
Hmm. I'm really curious now, like like how do you make decisions now, like in yeah, in this part of your life? I guess it's not coming from the I guess what they call ego mind. Is it just like straight up gut feeling, like just intuition every day?
It's the same anyway anyone else makes a decision, you know? How do you decide what to do? Is it gut feeling? Is it intuition? Is it the mind? Well, it's a combination of all these things, isn't it? Sometimes it'll be more gut feeling, sometimes it'll be more intellect,
Hmm.
right? It's not like you shouldn't, I don't use the intellect. You have to use the intellect's a part of the body.
Mhm.
You walk using your feet and your legs. Yeah. When you're in liberation, you don't suddenly stop walking using your feet and your legs. You still use your feet and your legs because they have a purpose, they have a function. And the mind, the body, the feelings, the emotions, the intuition, it all has function. But is it functioning together holistically? You know, if you're trying to, I don't know, do something that's better done with your hands and you're trying to do it with your legs, that's not very intelligent.
Hmm.
In the same way, so it's everything has its place. And what you tend to find is things tend to fall more naturally in place. So there's a synergy, a working together of all the different components of the body for the most part. And Tom, this body mind entity called Tom, doesn't always get things right. He's not perfect by any means. So, and then he adjusts. He'll adjust, he'll correct, he'll learn from the mistakes. Sometimes maybe he was too intellectual, or sometimes he didn't trust his intuition, or sometimes he didn't think enough about something, you know.
Mm.
Or sometimes um I watch somebody and I see that they're doing it in a more intelligent way than me. I think, oh, that was great. I like the way they did that. I'm gonna steal that or aspect of that and learn from it. So it's just the same as anyone else, really.
Mm.
But there's no rigid dogma at the basis of it. There's no ideology and there's no sense of self.
Mm.
It's just a natural functioning.
All right. So if I ask you, who are you, then what would you answer?
Well, it depends the context.
Ah,
If we weren't in this sort of podcast context, you say, "Oh, who are you then?" I'll say, "I'm Tom." And then, if I was in professional capacity, I'll tell you, "Oh, this is my job." Or if I was, at a event at my one of my kids' schools or something, I'd say, "Oh, yeah, I'm so and so's dad."
mm,
You see, it's context dependent, isn't it?
yeah. Do you have a day job besides being a spiritual teacher?
I do. Yeah, I do. Yeah, yeah. Um, I work as a doctor. I work as a doctor.
Cool. Like what part of the body do you treat?
I'm a generalist, so I treat all of the body. So, yeah, like family practice.
Mm.
In the UK, we call it general practice. So I'm a GP, general practitioner.
You have some
So we
lucky
do, we have
patients.
to deal with like, say that again.
You have some lucky patients because they're getting treated by
Oh,
someone with so much clarity, and at the same time you're treating their body. That's pretty amazing.
oh, thank you, thank you. I hope so. I hope so. As I said, I'm not perfect. I try all I on the level of the body mind. All you can do is try your best with what you have, and that's what I do too. You know. And hopefully I get it right most of the time. Well, I know I do, but I'm not perfect. I'm still learning all these things. You know, being a father, being a doctor, being a teacher. Hopefully getting better at these things. That's
And the
the hope.
learning, like it never ends, right?
Well, the liberation is final once and for all. Liberation is it's just
Mm.
absolute. But on the level of the body mind, learning learning ends when the body mind ends.
Mm.
But until then, yes, it continues, hopefully. But it might not. Like if you get a dementia, or you get a traumatic brain injury or something, then maybe the learning will end. Maybe I'm being too literal. But
I'm getting these random questions appearing now. Like, for example, like I'm really curious. Like, what are your favorite movies? What are some of your favorite movies?
oh, some of my favorite movies. I've got loads of different favorite movies. Different genres. Um, One of my favorite movies that comes to mind right now, it's a personal movie to me because I watched it with my now wife when we before we got married, and it's a beautiful film called Before Sunrise. Have you seen it before?
Is this for the guy and the lady are having a
Yeah,
conversation right through? Yeah,
that's it. It's Ethan Hawke and
yeah.
Julie Delpy, I think her name is. And yeah, a boy and a girl, or a young man and a young woman, meet each other on a train, and they just get on with each other and they have a conversation. And I mean, I won't spoil it in case anyone listening wants to watch it and they haven't seen it before. It's a beautiful film. And, I remember watching it being very moved by that movie. So that's one of my favorite ones.
Mm.
And there's another movie I like. And by the way, that movie does have a spiritual aspect to it as well. It's just a lovely movie. And when I was younger, I watched it, and there's a sequel to it as well, which is beautiful. In fact, there are two sequels to it.
Mm.
And then there's another one of my favorite movies called Dan in Real Life, which is just an easy to watch comedy movie. It's a sort of very simple, lovely movie, but it's become one of my favorites because it's just very, I don't know, I like it. It's not spiritual. It's just like a comedy about it's about a man who's a father of three girls, three daughters. And it's taught in a very lovely way. So I hopefully I won't spoil too much, but he's a single parent. And it doesn't explicitly tell you right at the beginning he's a single parent, but the clues are there right from the very first scene. So I love the way the story's told. There's so many little things in that movie that are very beautifully told. And it's about him um, being completely devoted to his three daughters and the issues he has with them. And then eventually about him finding um, maybe falling in love and finding someone else. So it's kind of they're both sort of romantic movies. These two particular ones, they're the ones that come to mind.
Like before you realized this like awakening or liberation, like did you ever feel like a hopeless romantic?
Yeah, yeah, and maybe not hopeless romantic, but there's a romantic side of me, which is probably why I like these sorts of movies. I do like I like action movies and things like this too. Um, I just can't, they don't spring to mind as being my favorite right now. There's
Mm,
some great action movies. I recently rewatched, maybe in the last year, I rewatched the original Terminator movie,
nice.
which I watched when I was, when when I was younger. And, it's interesting to watch now, you know, watching a movie from back from the 80s and things like that. But yeah, I think when I was younger, I was quite idealistic and naive and romantic. And in some ways, this personality, Tom, can be still like that, quite romantic and naive. So
Mm.
sometimes I've got to be careful and like remember, you know, not to be too naive, to think about things clear properly sometimes.
Like for the longest time, I really, I truly believed that I could only be happy through like the perfect girlfriend or relationship. So like
Mm,
a lot of energy seeking that.
yeah. Um, and now, do you still think that?
I had to learn the hard way that it's not possible. Or
It's funny, these sorts of things, as a spiritual teacher, I actually help people with relationship issues, these kinds of things as well. You
mm,
know, I've helped younger men through these sorts of issues and women as well, because women have a similar but slightly different set of issues when it comes to romantic relationships, whether they're in same sex or opposite sex or whatever type of romantic relationship they're in. And so I often help people through these sorts of things. Some of the people I help are interested in spirituality, but some of them have just sort of been recommended. They've had me recommended to them by a friend or something, and they're not really spiritual, but it's been wonderful to help guide people through these sorts of things.
mm,
And I think many of us have so many false ideas and understanding of what relationships are and what and how to do well in a relationship and what a healthy relationship looks like and will a relationship make you happy?
mm.
All these things that you're intimating when I can hear you learned the hard way. It's not easy, these sorts of things. So I do help guide people again to the best of my ability through these things, and it's been really successful so far. Actually, the sort of work I've done, I've been doing this for quite a few years now.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, like, I had to learn the hard way. I just kept seeking happiness through relationships, just like ending one, starting another one, like hurting people along the way. And then like in the aftermath, when I saw like what I had done, I just felt so much guilt. Like it was
Mm.
crippling.
Oh, must feel awful.
It
Must
was
feel
really
terrible.
challenging. But that was last year. Last year it felt like it went by slow, like I was like dragging my feet through mud. But this year I feel like it's flowing.
Oh, that's good.
And I actually
Are
feel
you
like I know
are
like
you
the
in a relationship now?
I'm in a relationship right now, yeah.
Yeah.
I am.
How long have you been with this person for?
Almost 1 year consistently. Like yeah, before like I had met her like before, but it like because of my own like issues and like lack of clarity, I would be like on off on off. But as of right now, it's been almost 1 year consistently.
Oh wow, that's
And actually,
fantastic.
you know what? I gotta tell you, we met we met on a trip that we both individually we decided to go to Tiruvannamalai.
Oh wow.
And so we met on that trip, like we were in the same travel group.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
That's very auspicious.
that really tripped me out. I was like, whoa, I think I should look into this and see what happens.
Wow, yeah. That's amazing.
I think you've also been to this place, right?
You know what? My guru, I consider my guru, my teacher to be Sri Ramana Maharshi,
Mm.
um, who, as most of your listeners will know by the sounds of it, he was based in Tiruvannamalai. I've never been though. I've never
Mm.
been. I've been to India many times, but never ended up going there. One day maybe I'll go.
Yeah, I think you would like it.
Yeah, well, I'm sure I would. I'm sure I would. Yeah, I don't have much motivation to want to go. But if it's sort of something that happens, then that would be great.
The food is
But
good.
the food,
Yeah.
what did you like eating there?
Like we had dosa. The dosa was really good.
Oh yeah.
We tried so many different kinds of chai, like the
Chai, yeah. Yeah.
that was really
Oh great. Yeah.
and also I think you would like it's common there to walk around the mountain.
Yeah.
I forget how many kilometers, like maybe like I think it's more than 15 kilometers or something. I think you would like that. That's a cool experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're probably right. I love walking. I love walking in nature, so I
Mm.
probably would like it. It's pretty hot, right? It's pretty hot.
I think it depends what
South.
time of the year you go. Like when we went, it was like a Chinese New Year, like Lunar New Year, which is like the end of January. So it was actually kind of chilly now that I think about it. Yeah, we were wearing like sweaters and warm clothing.
I liked how you called it Lunar New Year. Yeah, you see, because you're in Vietnam, so you'll know, call it Lunar New Year, right?
Yeah, just in case I
Because
get a
yeah, all the Vietnamese people I know, they're like Lunar New Year, not Chinese New Year, because they're
yeah,
Vietnamese. So
or get attacked by my friends here.
exactly. Lunar New Year. It's not just China.
Yeah. But yeah, that happened. I mean, if you go, I think we could even meet up there because like it's kind of in between where you and I are right now. So if you happen to go, we can chill there.
Yeah, yeah. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, cool. Hey, I have some questions from my friends that they wanted me to ask you.
Okay. You have friends who are interested in this stuff as well?
I have a few friends. Yeah. This one is from my friend Raphael. He's asking, what is stopping us from seeing reality more clearly?
Well, that's a great question. Now, words are tricky. This teaching is transmitted in words, but it's also transmitted without words, in silence. And ultimately, it's not transmitted from me to anyone or anything like that. Although it can be on a relative level, Ultimately, it comes from yourself to yourself. It's heart to heart transmission or self to self transmission, which actually, if we think about it, is not actually transmission. It's just being what you are. So read the question again for me, please.
What is stopping many of us from seeing reality more clearly?
Yes. What stopping many of us seeing reality more clearly? Reality is not something you can see, like with your eyes or with your senses. And it's not something you can know with your mind, your brain, your thinking. And it's not something you can feel with your body or your senses. Reality is something you are. It's what you are. Reality is you. But it's not Nick. It's not Tom. It's not Raphael. Raphael, right?
Mhm.
It's what you actually are. It's beyond the body, mind, senses. It's always being, in quotes, seen, but just not with the physical eye or with the mind or with the ear or the nose or it's not sensed, not perceived in that way. It's always being, in quotes, perceived, but we can't put it in words. There's no words to describe the perception or the seeing of the reality. So we call it seeing because we haven't got a better word. But you should know that seeing reality is, you can't literally see it. It's a metaphorical use of the word to see. It's what you are, and you are always it. So if if that is the case, if we're always the reality, then why don't we feel like we're the reality? Why don't we see it? Going back to your friend's question, it's because there's one problem at the core. There's one core problem, the root problem, the core problem. If that core problem is removed, then you will, in quotes, see reality. Now, just to be very clear, when you see reality, you just be reality. You just are reality. And when you are reality, there is no other. Both the sense of being a me or an I and the sense of there being a you or other, both of these disappear totally, completely. This cannot be understood by the brain or the mind. The brain and the mind cannot understand what it's like not to be there. For there not to be an I or a you or a he or a she or an it or a that or a they or a this or a that. You see, the brain can only think in dualistic terms. And this is utter non-duality. So when we see reality, it's not that Tom sees the reality or Nick sees the reality or Raphael sees the reality. There will be no Tom. There will be no Nick. There will be no Raphael. There'll be nothing like this. It's just a reality. And it's what you're looking for. The reality is what you're looking for. It's just your true nature, your own self, your own being. So I still haven't answered the question yet. What is the main thing that stops us from being that reality now? We can rephrase the question. Or and it's this one problem I said. This one problem is the belief or the idea or the strongly held view that I am a separate entity. I am a body mind entity. I am the body, I'm the mind. I'm this body mind conglomeration. This is what I am. I'm so if I think I am Tom, you know, I was born at a certain time in a certain place, and I'm this many years old, and this is my job, and this is what I do, and this is who I am. And then you're Nick, and you're born at a certain time and place, and you have certain characteristics and certain skills, and now you've been in a relationship for a year, but last year it was a bit tougher for you. All these kinds of things. Yeah. And this is your belief. This is my belief. See, when I believe that I'm a person, I'm a body mind entity. To stop saying body mind entity all the time, we can just say the word person. When I believe I'm a person, then I project that and I think you're a person, and then they're a person. That's a thing, and that's the thing. And it gives rise to a world of things and people. But when we lose the belief, the false belief, it's actually a false belief, the false notion that I'm a person, then we, um, at the exact same time, simultaneously as we lose that belief, we discover what we actually are. Or to put it the way around, when we discover what we actually are, that belief, that false belief will naturally fall away. That's maybe a better way of putting it,
Mm.
you know? So, if I think you're the tallest person in the world, and then suddenly someone else comes along who's taller than you, as soon as I see that someone else is taller than you, I immediately realize that you're not the tallest person in the world. Simultaneously, as soon as I see the truth that there's someone else taller than you, at the exact same moment in time, I realize the false belief I had previously that you are the tallest person in the world. It's a bit slightly clumsy metaphor, but in the same way, when you see what you actually are, in that same moment, the false belief disappears, it vanishes.
Mm.
So going back to the question again, if I may,
Mm.
what is stopping us from seeing reality as we are? It's because we don't know what we are. As soon as we know what we are, and it's not knowing with the mind, it's not knowing dualistically, it's not like Tom can know. It's just being what you are. Sorry, you wanted to say something.
When you mentioned like when you see like let's call it truth, when you see the truth, then the false belief, just by logic, it fades out. Like it
Yeah,
doesn't make sense anymore. It's not valid
yeah,
anymore.
yeah. And it's not even by logic, but I know what you mean. It
Mm.
just necessarily falls away.
Mm.
If I believe you're the tallest person in the world, and then someone walks behind you and they're taller than you, and I see that, I can no longer believe that you're tall. I can no longer simultaneously see taller person next to you and believe you're the tallest person in the world still.
Mm.
Unless I don't see them clearly. I don't understand, or I don't understand what I'm seeing.
Mm.
So we don't have to remove the false belief.
Mm.
This is an important part of the teaching because a lot of people are trying to remove the idea that they're a person.
Mm.
Yeah. Which is just strengthening the idea of a person because it's the person that's trying to remove the idea that they're a person.
Mhm.
So you end up going around in circles and tying yourself up in knots. It's important. The idea isn't to try and destroy the ego. This false belief that I'm a person, we can also call that the ego. This is how I define the word ego. So in liberation, there's no the ego is destroyed because the ego is defined as this idea that I'm a body, mind entity. I'm a person. That's how I define the word ego. It's a sense of I,
Mm.
a separate I. Ego literally means I. Ego is the Latin word for I, right?
Mhm.
So um, the key thing is we do need to destroy the ego does need to be destroyed for liberation, but we don't destroy the ego by trying to destroy the ego. Yeah. We destroy the ego by discovering with the truth. And that is by knowing what we are in the way I've explained. It's not knowing. We use that word knowing metaphorically because there is no actual word that in any language, in the English language or any language, to describe knowing reality or being reality. There is no being, maybe is one of the closest words we can have,
Mm.
but even that falls short.
It's like if you're trying to destroy the ego with your ego, then I guess you might end up saying like, "I'm awakened now."
You could do, yeah. You could say, look, there's no one here. I've discovered there's no one here.
Is that what happened to Osho?
Well, I prefer not to talk about individual teachers,
Mm.
especially I prefer not to criticize individual teachers. I prefer to keep about the teachings because
Mm.
then you can apply it, you know. Otherwise, then, you know, if I say something, let's say I were to say something negative about Osho, then I'll have a whole load of people who are Osho fans, you know, not very happy with what I'm saying, and and then we get into that kind of thing. Whereas if I lay out the basics of the teaching, then anyone can follow it if they want to.
Mm.
And and it will also help if you're a follower of Osho, you could still follow what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, but if I say, oh no, Osho's boo, Osho, then suddenly you're going to turn off a whole load of people. And it's not that helpful. So I tend
Ah.
not to talk about individual teachers, but I'm happy to talk about teachings,
Mm.
you know.
Because, like when I listen to Osho, it sounds like he was also aware of these teachings, but then he had like a blind spot or something. It kind of, I don't know, it kind of seems that way.
Yeah, that kind of thing happens a lot. That kind of thing happens a lot.
Mm.
And it doesn't, and again, I'm not speaking about Osho because I don't tend to do that, but these people often have a lot of genuine spiritual insights. So you can learn from them, but it's just there's a distortion present. So it doesn't mean you can't learn from them. It doesn't mean they didn't teach good things, but often, depending on how much distortion is present, one, it could just steer you off course slightly. And two, worst case scenario, there can be abuse and there can be corruption and there can be power play and this kind of stuff, you know.
Mm.
And this is why I recommend if people are able to follow the teachings of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi, whose teaching is so simple, so clear, so pure, so undistorted. And I've set out a load of recommended reading on tomdas.com, which is my website, tomdas.com. And you can see and it's almost all of it's available for free. There's so many resources there. There are videos, there are articles, there are books, there, you know, questions and answers. Pretty much every part of the spiritual journey is touched upon or either slightly or in depth. If there is a part that you want to know more about, you can always drop me a question and I can come up with something maybe.
What do you think about this? In Tiruvannamalai, across from Ramana Maharshi's ashram, there's a little bookstore. And in the bookstore, there is a section that is full of Krishnamurti books, like J. Krishnamurti. I would just say J. Krishnamurti's message matches with Sri Ramana Maharshi's message.
Well, so again, for me to be diplomatic, you see, I'm trying not to be negative about other teachers, right? I want to bring people to liberation. Okay. And I want to bring people, if they're interested, to Ramana's teachings, because I have found Ramana's teachings to be wholly liberating. Not just his teachings, but his energy, his presence. And so that's what I love to share. So what I would say, to be diplomatic, and you know, if someone's listening to this, they'll hopefully be able to understand what I'm saying. I would recommend two things. One, I'd recommend the teachings of Ramana. That's the first thing. He's one of the very few teachers that I've ever come across that teaches very clearly and simply that entire path to liberation. Yeah. Doesn't matter where you start from, but he'll take you right to the end. So if liberation is like the top of a mountain, he'll take you from wherever you are. Maybe you're at the base, maybe you're already halfway up, and he'll take you right to the top, all the way to the top. He won't stop 5 meters from the top or 500 meters from the top. His teachings take you all the way to the top. So that's why I recommend Ramana's teachings. Now, not everyone is going to like Ramana's teachings. It's just the way it works. But that's my heartfelt recommendation.
Mhm.
That's the first piece of advice. The second piece of advice is whatever teacher you are drawn to, whatever teaching you are attracted to, this teacher or teaching is probably going to be beneficial to you. It's probably going to be useful to you. Now, my own personal experience of these other teachers and teachings, and obviously I don't know all the teachers and teachings. I've just come across the ones I've come across. So my personal experience is that most of these other teachers and teachings, they'll help you a part of the way up the mountain. And they may speak to you in a way that I don't or Ramana doesn't. So use them to help you. They want to help you, so use them to help you. So whatever you enjoy, whatever teacher or teaching you enjoy, use it. But very few will take, and when you're at the bottom of the mountain, of this metaphorical mountain that represents the journey to liberation, there'll be lots of teachers and teachings that will help you get quarter of the way up, halfway up. There'll be loads of guides who can help you on the lower portions of the mountain. But as you get higher and higher, the guides become fewer and fewer. And when it comes to the final, 5, 10 meters of the ascent to the summit, right to the top, there are only very few teachers who have this kind of level of understanding, in my opinion.
Mm.
But this is something when you're at the bottom of the mountain, you won't be able to discern all this. You'll think everyone's helping you go up, so everyone's doing this, everyone's teaching the same thing. But as you get nearer the top, you start to see there are different levels of teaching, different quality of teaching. Because when I first started, I thought, oh, everyone's saying the same thing in a different way. But when you get nearer the top, you realize, oh, they're not. So it
Mm.
doesn't matter when you're at the bottom because anyone can help you get halfway up or three-quarters of the way up even. So whatever teaching helps you, whatever teaching you're attracted to is probably got something in it for you. But
Mm.
just hold in mind what I've said about Bhagavan Ramana as being um, the best or one of the best that I've come across.
Like the
I
most,
recommend, sorry?
like the most direct path.
Well, it's the most direct path, but it's not just the most direct path. It's also um, an effective path. There's no point having a very good teaching that doesn't take you away to the top if you want to go to the top. Again, using this metaphor
Mm.
of climbing the mountain. If all you want is something halfway up the mountain, then that's fine. There'll be other teachers and teachings that can help you with that. But if you want liberation, which is non-duality, which is cessation of suffering, which is becoming one with that which you truly are, one with the divine, which you already are, then there are very few teachings that will do that in my experience. All the ones I know of, I've put on my recommended reading list on tomdas.com.
Mm.
And you'll see on my blog, there are a huge diversity of teachings I've commented on and written about, but only very few of them make it to the recommended reading list
Mm.
for this reason. But, not everyone's going to agree with what I'm saying, and that's fine. You just, as long as you've heard what I've said and you can retain it in your mind, and then you can make up your own mind. You can do your own exploration. And then, if you think I'm right, then, I've got the resources on tomdas.com where you can come and meet me. And if you don't think I'm right, then you just do what you want to do. And it doesn't matter because whatever you do, you will end up doing the right thing for you eventually.
Mm.
It will all come home in our own way.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter whether you follow me or not. The main thing is you should follow your own heart.
Mm.
It's good to also listen to, the advice of someone like me, I think. But then you follow your own heart. So, for example, if I'm saying Ramana's teachings are the best and you pick up one of Ramana's books or something, but then you really like Krishnamurti more, then follow Krishnamurti. But just remember what I said about Bhagavan Ramana, because maybe in the future that will be useful to you.
Mm.
So I'm just dropping a seed in now. And then if you want to read J. Krishnamurti, go read, and benefit. I used to read lots of J. Krishnamurti teachings when I was younger. I read pretty much everything over a period of several years.
Mm.
And wonderful teachings. But I now recommend Bhagavan Ramana. So you
Mm.
can read into that.
I think like for me, J. Krishnamurti is the reason why I felt that I could trust Ramana Maharshi's teachings.
Oh, what interesting.
There was like a pattern there in
Mm.
both of them that matched each other. And so I was really surprised that when I went to that little bookstore in front of the ashram that it had Krishnamurti books. I was just like totally mind blown by that.
What did you think about them? You
Of
thought
Krishnamurti books or
Krishna, but yeah, I guess you saw that, thought that was a good thing.
yeah.
Amazing. You
Yeah.
see, someone else might think that's a bad thing,
Maybe right. Yeah, could be.
but you see how in your own life this has helped you.
Mm. I've depended, I really trust that. I don't know what to call it. I just keep calling it the pattern, a pattern. I guess some people call it the Tao or something, right? Like there's just like a specific pattern that I trust. And that pattern
It's
is
like, sorry,
that pattern is just what guided me to Ramana Maharshi. You were saying something?
sorry, I interrupted you. Sorry.
No, no, no.
Yeah, I was just saying, yes, it's like science, you see. You get different scientists in different parts of the world discovering the same truths. You know, you may be using different language or different mathematical formulas and different ways of notation and things like this, and different forms of expression, but they're all coming to the same thing.
Mm,
Exactly. And this makes you trust. Oh my gosh, this person's saying that, and that person's saying that. Oh, Jesus said that. But
exactly.
another person in a completely different part of the world said something different, said something very similar in a different way, and this is how I started thinking this is amazing. There's something here.
And it was like different people in from different cultures in different time periods. So it was like, how can they all be saying the same thing? Like it was,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
for like my family, I guess attempted to raise me Catholic, and but I always found inconsistency. So for a long time, I was looking for consistency
Yeah.
in something, and I couldn't find it until I came upon these teachings.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. The same here. Same here.
Mm,
Many people who come to my meetings and who interact with me, they say that the way I share Bhagavan Ramana's teachings has helped them um, understand Jesus's teachings better. And so a lot of these people have been brought up Christian, or like you said, maybe their parents tried to bring them up in a Christian or Catholic way. And they either became Christian and they left, or they never really became Christian in the first place, like
mm,
me. My school would try to educate me in a Christian way, but I never really took it on. But there was something there that there was something there for me. There's something that excited me about Jesus. There's something inspired me about Jesus, this figure and his teachings. And so I was intrigued. But many people who come to me, they left the church. They've left Christianity, they've left the Catholic Church, and they discover Bhagavan Ramana's teachings. And as they discover Bhagavan Ramana's teachings and the way I explain it with Jesus, they become closer to Jesus, and it helps them come back to the religion of their childhood, or the tradition in which they're brought up in it. Because if you're brought up in a tradition, there's something about that tradition that's familiar,
mm,
and it can be anyway, not for everyone, but for some people it can be. There's something nice and comforting about that, and familiar about it. So it's nice if you can find the truths in your own tradition as well that you can relate to, again in a heart-to-heart way.
mm,
So it's wonderful to bring people closer to their own spirituality. And ultimately, that's what I do. I mean, yes, I like to signpost people towards Bhagavan Ramana's teachings, but more important than that is to enable and facilitate people to discover the teachings, the truth for themselves in their own lives, in their own experience. That's much more important.
mm,
The reason I like Bhagavan Ramana's teachings, he's done all the hard work for us, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's like if you're revising for your school exams. He's created all the revision materials, all the revision tools, all the revision guides, all the study guides. He's done it all for you. So we don't have to rewrite that stuff. We don't have to reinvent that stuff. That's all there for you. So it's like the whole package is there. So why throw that away? Why not say, look, we've got these ready-made
Sorry.
study guides.
Hmm. Sorry about that.
No
Alexa.
worries. You okay?
Yeah, that was my I have Alexa, the little Bluetooth thingy. It starts talking sometimes. Sorry about
So Amazon's been listening to everything we've been saying.
that. Yeah. She's learning. Oh, I remember when I was in Tiruvannamalai, I bought Ramana Maharshi's book, I think it's called Who Am I?
Yeah.
But in Spanish for my mom because my mom speaks Spanish. Just in case I got it for her. And I don't think she read it, but after a few years, we had some new family members come over and live in our house. So now my aunt's husband is reading it.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think he's getting it.
Wow. How interesting.
Yeah, I'm so glad I got that book, man. And it's really short. It's really simple. Like just how you said it, right? Like he keeps it as simple as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an amazing book. It's like 10 or 12 pages long. The
Mm.
book Who Am I? And it contains pretty much everything you need for liberation. If you're interested in liberation, it's pretty much everything is in that book. Um, and when for me, when I first read it, I got certain things from it. But as I matured and developed spiritually, I started to see more and more things that I'd never seen before. There's like a book that keeps on giving. It's like, is this really only 10 or 12 pages long? Because it's very densely written and it's written in a very peculiar, unusual way. It might not seem that way, but it is. There's a strange logic to it, and it's written in a strange way. And the teachings come out more and more over time.
I think I'm gonna take another look at that book again pretty soon.
Here's one tip then, if you're reading it again for like the second, third, or 10th, 11th time. The sections in brackets, you'll see, especially in the answers to the first few questions, there'll be some in the answers, they'll have, or in the question even, they'll have bits in brackets. That isn't there in the original. So it was written in the language Tamil, in the Tamil language. And in the original Tamil language, none of the bracketed sections are there. That is the translator trying to be, in quotes, helpful.
Ah,
But they actually just, when they're in trying to be helpful, they've actually distorted the teaching.
mm,
So you can try reading it and ignore the brackets and read it more literally. This is how it's intended to be read.
good to know.
So you can let me know what you think if you do that ever.
Awesome, for sure. So we've been talking for about an hour. I don't know if you have maybe things to do over there. Um,
How are we doing? I'm okay if you, because you said some of your friends had some questions. So I don't know
yeah,
if they had any more questions.
yeah, I have one more from my friend Max.
What's his name or her name?
Max.
Max. Max.
And he's asking, did you always have this much clarity, or was there like a specific experience that helped you to realize this?
Oh, well, that's a compliment. That's a question and a compliment. So I'll take that compliment
Mm.
because he's and the implication is I have so much clarity. So that's good. You know what? With Bhagwan, I read and investigated and explored so many different teachings, and I tried so many different practices, you know, over so many years. All the major sort of forms of spirituality, probably I've tried and looked into. There might be some more newer ones that I'm not so aware of in the last 5, 10 years because I haven't been seeking in the last in that in the last 10 plus years. So, when I was seeking, I was sort of very, very aware of everything that's happening in the scene. Now, for the last 10 years, I've just not been so interested. I've not been interested in it basically because there's no need. So there might be some more current things. Um, for me, that's in the last 10 years that I'm not so aware of. And everything I learned about, there were always questions. There were always unanswered questions, things that didn't make sense. Because the way Tom's brain is, he again, I've realized this more now as I'm older, I've met more people and things. The way Tom's brain is, he's very dogmatically questioning. He wants to know answers to questions. And if something doesn't make sense, and I think Tom's quite good at seeing the holes in people's arguments, seeing the problems in people's arguments. Naturally, that's something he seems to be quite good at. And that's not always positive, by the way, because it can mean you become very, very cynical or you doubt everything, which is what I was like.
Sounds like me.
Yeah. Yeah, I doubt things. I'm constantly doubting things. I'm always saying, that doesn't look true. That doesn't look true. That doesn't look true. And because I read Krishnamurti a lot when I was younger, he encourages that too, I think. He encourages you to be very skeptical, J. Krishnamurti.
Mm.
He was a big influence on me. So when I came across these spiritual teachings, like a good scientist, they're all everything I came across, there was lots of things that didn't make sense. But when I first came across Ramana's teachings, the first thing I did was I rejected them. I thought they didn't make sense. That's
Mm.
the first thing I did. And then a few years later, I came across them again and I was able to hear them and receive them in a different way. And then through Bhagavan Ramana's teachings, all my questions were answered. And that was what was giving me clarity. Yeah, it's the genuine experience of liberation combined with Bhagavan's teachings. Everything makes sense. This is what gives me the clarity that I have. If anyone thinks I have clarity, that's what it is. And most of the teachings there's that you'll find if you think about things, they're problems. And if you read my introductory articles, I've got a list of introductory articles on tomdas.com. If you read them carefully, a lot of people don't bother reading them carefully. If you read them carefully, you'll see there are lots of questions they bring up. And the questions they bring up are often questions that are not answered by other teachings. This is what I'm saying, that other teachings often get you halfway to the top or three-quarters of the way to the top. But that last bit, there's some unanswered questions. So it's through genuine realization and Bhagavan's grace, his teachings, they answer all our questions. Now, questions on the intellectual level, they don't need to be answered for liberation, actually. But if you want them to, if you're that kind of mind, then I can perhaps help you. But one of the things I do most with people, they come to me, they've got all these strange, weird, wonderful ideas of what liberation is. And a lot of it is just what other teachers are saying. And I think a lot of teachers are saying what other teachers are saying. There's a whole thing going on. But when you hear the truth, when you feel the truth, when you feel it deep within you, and you see it to be true, clearly, then there's no doubt. And this is where the clarity actually comes from.
Mm. Awesome. Great. I think we'll call it we'll call this episode for now and hopefully continue again. This is really awesome. I think we should do this more often.
Yeah, if you want to, just let me know.
Awesome. And are there any new films coming out with you featured?
And there is actually. So the people, what's that? Awakening Mind is where you saw me, right?
Mhm.
So the same team. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say. Um, I haven't been told I can't, but I don't know. The same team who put together that documentary. There's another documentary they've put together on the life of Ramana, the
Mm.
teachings of Ramana,
Mhm.
and I understand that's going to come out in the next few months.
Well,
Um, I'm not sure if it's been announced already yet, so I won't say anything more. Um, but what actually, it feels like it's okay to say it. Yeah, the documentary is meant to be called Turiya. So Turiya, there's a documentary Turiya coming. I don't know, what it'll be like, but it's meant to be an introduction to Ramana's teachings, and they've they filmed me for part of it. So that'll be coming out in the next few
Oh,
months.
awesome.
Yeah. What are your favorite movies, by the way?
Ooh, one that I just rewatched with my girlfriend recently is called The Fountain.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know that one. Yeah. That's crazy, right?
And like
Far out.
the first time I watched that movie, like I didn't plan this at all, but I happened to be tripping on mushrooms,
Oh my gosh.
and someone just chose that movie, and we just watched it like spontaneously.
Uh, I mean, that sounds like was that a good idea to watch that on mushrooms, or do you not need mushrooms to watch that?
Yeah, you don't need mushrooms to watch that, but I mean, like when I watched it on mushrooms, like I just felt like it resonated so hard on me, and like that was even before I heard about non-dualism or spirituality or anything about that. I just watched that movie on mushrooms, and something about that just really resonated.
Do you do mushrooms quite a lot?
No, I haven't done it for about 2 years.
Okay,
Yeah, because I mean, also it could also turn into seeking, right?
totally, totally. No, I personally I don't recommend any of that stuff at all.
Mm,
But people do come to me and say, "Oh, actually, I had this experience and it was amazing and it life changing in a positive way."
mm.
But I've also had people who've had negative experiences too. So
It could
it's
happen,
hard.
or just how you said, like it could take you like a bit up that mountain, but it's not directly to. It's
Yeah,
not a direct
yeah.
path.
It isn't. It isn't. But it can be amazing. There's no doubt whether I recommend it or not. There's no doubt that it is it can be a major part of many people's spiritual journey. These
Mm,
sorts of things, they have been a part of people's spiritual journeys. So we should acknowledge that. But that's not the same as me recommending it.
mm. But also, like my family is from Peru, so like in Peru, they also have this thing ayahuasca,
Yeah.
which is like the DMT drink. I haven't tried that, and I'm not seeking it, but I just kind of feel like if somehow ayahuasca and I just happen to coincide somewhere, then
Yeah.
I
If you're in a bar together and you
would.
might buy her a drink kind of thing.
Wait, have you ever experienced a trip like that or of any kind?
Never, never.
Okay, yeah, like when you trip, like it should be ideally like a really calm setting because like if you're at a bar and you're tripping, that setting would just it would mess with
No,
you,
it would be freak you out, or
it
probably.
would
Yeah.
freak you out.
Yeah.
Like the worst trip I ever had was I tripped once in downtown Washington DC because I'm my hometown is Virginia, so like, I live near there, and that was a terrible idea. It was just
Yeah.
too intense.
It's too much stimulation and stuff going on, and
Yeah,
you need to feel safe, don't you? Typically, you want to feel safe, um, and you want to be have people around you, good people around you.
that's true. But then the best
I
trips
did
I've had have been in nature, like even like just like swimming in like a shallow water, something is that's been really
with
awesome.
water. Oh gosh, you got to be careful with water.
Yeah, it has to be shallow. Yeah. Oh my
Yeah, you got
God.
to be very careful with water.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it has to be shallow water.
like
Or
incredibly shallow.
one time I this is so dumb.
Like,
One time I here in Vietnam, I was tripping in the ocean at night, and
oh my God.
when like I guess like the trip was still like on the way to the peak, so I was waiting in the water, and then I went underwater to see what it felt like, and then when I came back up, I felt like I had just been in two different worlds. Like underwater was like one world, and over the water was a different world. So it kind of scared me. It's like, okay, I'm not gonna go underwater anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
So
okay.
we should use it carefully.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's not needed for liberation, but as I said, for some people, it'll be a part of their journey.
Mm,
But it's totally unnecessary for liberation. What you tend to find is that it can change your paradigm if you don't realize if you think spirituality is a load of rubbish, for example, then it can really open your eyes up to something different. Or if you are starting out your journey, it can open you up to something. But it doesn't lead to sort of lasting realizations typically. Or it can lead to lasting realizations, but not lasting liberation.
mm.
it can lead to lasting insights actually, but liberation is much simpler, much easier.
Mm. Yeah, the very first time I tried psychedelics, I didn't know anything about spirituality or liberation or anything. I just remember that while I was experiencing that, I was like near the forest, and I just felt like, why do I feel like I understand everything right now? I just felt like that,
Mm. Yeah,
and I was
yeah,
just really present. Like I could see, like it was a windy day. I could see how the leaves were like individually moving and flowing with the wind, and I just thought everything just felt and just looked amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But that should be possible to do without any of that, right?
Mm. I mean, some effects you'll only get through drugs, you know,
Mm.
probably. I mean, I act as if I know. I don't. That's my guess. But in terms of liberation, we don't need anything. You know, you don't need to, it doesn't matter if you're very perceptive or not perceptive. It doesn't matter if you're clever or stupid, you know, or if you consider yourself clever or stupid, or it doesn't matter if you're good at reading or good at meditating or not. None of these things matter because
Mm.
it's what we are. It's simpler and deeper than all these things.
And I feel like is liberation like realizing that there was nobody ever locked up in the first place? Like it's
Yes, it is.
like a just like like did
Yes, it is.
like do you ever just like laugh at that? Like does it seem like funny?
I mean, I guess so. Yeah. Sometimes I do. Yeah. It is. It is. Like, especially if someone comes to me and they've got an issue, especially if it's not that difficult, it's not that deep an issue, because obviously I don't laugh inwardly or outwardly when someone's genuinely suffering because I've got nothing but love, compassion, even
Mm.
if it's a small amount of suffering. But sometimes, it's funny,
Mm.
you know. And sometimes for Tom as well, like sometimes I laugh at Tom as well because he can be complete idiot sometimes and it's funny.
Is Tom still like I wonder healing it? Like I feel like I'm still healing some childhood trauma and stuff. Like even though it wasn't as bad as other people, but still healing some things. Like is Tom still going through that as well?
He is actually. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, almost all the trauma was healed quite some time ago in Tom. But that kind of stuff, you see, it's a part of having a body. On the body level, there's always stuff to be healed. And even if you heal it all, there's new stuff coming in, there's new traumas coming in.
Mm.
So on the body mind level, yeah, he's still healing going on. See, physical healing, psychological healing, all these things will continue as long as there's a body mind.
Mm.
And the damage too. The body mind is constantly going to be experiencing physical trauma, psychological trauma, either a large amount or a small amount, just on a daily basis. And then the brain and the body have to process that.
Mm.
That's that's there. Yeah.
It kind of feels like I'm healing my entire family tree through
Mm.
through this person right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes it just sucks.
I know. I know. Hang in there.
Thank you.
No, hang in there. I know it sucks. Yeah. I know.
I
You'll be
th
all right.
like I could be wrong, but I think I have gotten through the most difficult parts. I could be wrong. I don't know, but
Yeah. No, but you probably have a sense. You probably have a sense. You're probably right.
like just the fact that I'm not looking for happiness in relationships is a big deal for me already because that like basically dominated my life.
That is a big deal. That is a big deal. You've done really well.
And I think that's the reason why I'm even able to maintain this relationship now because
Yeah,
I'm not
I'm sure it is. I'm sure
looking
it is. That's it.
for com for someone to make me happy.
That's it. If you're looking for someone else to fulfill you, it will affect your ability to maintain a long-term relationship over time. You know, most of us, though, will have some aspects of us that's still looking for fulfillment in a relationship when we enter into a relationship, even if it's much less than it was before. But over time, we have to be ourselves more and more, even on the body mind level. Otherwise, we'll unconsciously or consciously start to push the other person away from us without even realizing it always,
Mm.
you know.
I think that's one thing that I'm still doing sometimes. Like, if I feel that I can't trust somebody, I'll just be like, fuck it. And I just want to push it
Mm.
away.
Oh, it's great you recognize that because so many people who have that we all have different defense mechanisms, coping strategies. And people who have that kind of defense mechanism, they don't always recognize it. It's not an easy one because it's such an easy thing to say, oh, fuck it. You know, that's so easy. And so to say, actually, you know what? I'm not just going to say fuck it. I'm going to slow down and see what's happening and see if there's anything I'm more responsible for here than I'm perhaps willing to admit and talk it out a bit. You suffer more in the short term because if you just say fuck it, then you don't have to deal with anything.
Sure.
Yeah. So well done for seeing that. And
Okay. Now I'm
yeah,
just now I'm learning to not depend on coffee to keep me sane.
yeah.
It's been challenging. Like, I guess because you're a doctor, like I didn't think I would have I guess would you call this withdrawal symptoms? Like I think I've been kind of depending on Vietnamese coffee to keep me sane for
Oh
a
my
while.
gosh.
It's so
Vietnamese coffee as well is
strong
so strong. Yeah.
and it's so sweet and I love that coffee as
Oh,
well.
do you get it with the condensed milk, that one?
Yeah.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
yeah. Because they're different types of Vietnamese coffee I've tried, but the condensed milk one that's very strong and very sweet. Yeah.
I would drink like two of those daily and it's been probably over a year straight of doing that.
Yeah,
So
you get a lot of caffeine dependence. And if you can come off caffeine, it's really good for you.
I've
But it
taken
takes time. Takes some time. No, there's no rush. There's no rush with these things.
like I've
And the
taken
problem with
a few
caffeine
times.
as well, it's so easy to obtain, and so and it's a part of the culture. Most people just drinking coffees all the time. So even if you get yourself off it, it's very easy to go back onto it again.
Hmm.
That's not because if you wake up and you're feeling a bit tired, it's so easy just to have a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
But it's great if you can get yourself off it completely because it affects the way we think. If it does it, I mean, that's all I'll say for now because I know we've gone way over time. But it affects the way you think. It affects you on different levels. It affects your creativity. It probably limits your creativity in some ways, and it
Wow.
improves other forms of thinking. So it's good to come off it, especially if you're interested in creativity and spirituality. Um, it's good to come off it.
Good to know. I've taken it's like my day 5 of coffee detox. It feels like my eyes are like sinking into my face sometimes. Like it's so weird. But yeah, thank you so much, Tom. We'll
No,
definitely
it's
be
lovely to meet you. Lovely to meet you.
thank you so much.
I've really enjoyed this. Thank you.
I'll see you again soon.
Thank you.
Bye.